be fine.
Yeah. Okay, so we are live. Hello, everyone. As you can see, I am joined by the wonderful, marvelous Mr. Terry Gibson. Terry, how are you?
I'm very well, Semra. I'm not sure whether it's morning or afternoon. It's the most confusing part of my lifetime that I've ever come in. Don't know whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I believe it's Sunday. The clocks went forward, and only people just realising because
Myself
nothing
included,
else.
because if you hadn't told me that earlier, I wouldn't have known what hour of the day it was, or even the fact that it was Sunday. So I know what you mean.
But we're doing okay.
Well, you look good. I've never seen you, I think, in a short sleeve shirt ever, because you're always coming looking in so dapper and so well dressed with your suit and tie and everything. I mean, just look at the amount of tattoos on you. Can you show me
Yeah,
some?
I know. I keep them. They're fortunate. I can keep them covered up.
Which one is your favorite? Walk me through some of them.
Oh, I guess I've got like a family tree going on one
Oh,
side, which
amazing.
keeps and new additions keep appearing as well. So it's my wife, children, grandchildren now,
Nice.
and the rest is just for fun. But it's been I started about 25 years ago.
Oh my God, amazing. Wow, okay. Well, the
Yeah,
next time I see you in person, you can definitely walk me through all of those tattoos.
I copied my dad. My dad had tattoos, so it was something I'd always
Really?
wanted to do. Yeah, yeah, he had tattoos. So
Well, I always kind of dabbled with the idea, but I've never actually decided to go ahead and do it because I'm a little bit too afraid, I guess. But I don't know, maybe one day. We'll see. Who knows?
when I was old enough to ignore my mother, that's when I started.
You know, I did used to have on Father's Day, I decided to get a nose piercing. I used to have one here, I think on this side, but I don't have it anymore. I took it out a long time ago, but it was kind of the same thought. I was like, oh, maybe as a good Father's Day gift, I'll just get him a piercing. But anyway, the things you do when you're a teenager, I guess. So,
Yes, exactly.
so how are you? How are you coping with the whole situation? Obviously, you know, here in Spain things have been bad for a while, but now we've seen in the news that it's starting to really pick up over there in the UK. How are you holding up?
Fine. I mean, it's you just have to grin and bear it. It's worrying. It's frustrating. It's annoying and irritating. All the same things, the same emotions everybody's going through. All the things you took for as part of your natural life, you took for granted. Suddenly, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
So it's the biggest point for us is either mother who's 80, who's got health problems anyway, so we can't see her. So we're dropping off shopping up the garden, up the front, sort of 10 meters away, leaving outside her
Yeah.
doorstep.
Does she live
Um,
nearby?
about half an hour away, 40 minutes.
Okay.
Likewise with my daughter and her husband and our two grandchildren, we haven't seen them for 3 weeks. So but we're no different to most people. So it's frustrating. I'm just hoping every day we do. In these circumstances, is a day closer to getting back to normal. So
Yeah.
and of course on top of that, missing football.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think we all agree that health and safety it's paramount. It comes first right now. But it's hard to ignore that, you know, we do miss football, and I think it's okay to miss football. It's such a huge part of our life, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to kind of reminisce about the days of old and even the season, everything that's been happening so far. And it's nice to be able to use social media as well to see what's going on with the footballers, to see what's going on with the clubs, to stay on top of what's happening everywhere across the league and across the country too. But that's why I think it's kind of nice to do these little chats with you guys, to check in with you guys, because apart from missing the football, I also miss all of my LaLiga TV colleagues.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it'd be a nice way to kind of pass the time and to try and forget for a moment about the reality that we kind of currently find ourselves in, and try to find a way to, you know, have a bit of a laugh and have a bit of fun again. So for the occasion, I've got my enjoy life cup of tea. And I also, you'll be so proud of me, I made scones, homemade scones for the first time
Oh,
ever in my life. I think it actually turned out okay. So
we
chocolate,
have.
walnut, and cinnamon. Very
We've
delighted.
all taken to cooking, haven't we? I had some lovely homemade bread yesterday made by my wife Paula, and some banana bread.
Oh, nice. Oh, delicious.
So we're all trying.
Do you have any
I'm one of
jamon?
these.
Do you have any jamon left over? Are you missing those bocadillos de jamon that you love so much when you come over here to Spain?
Yes, I know I've become quite well known for my bocadillo on a Sunday evening whilst watching La Liga games, and spending the weekend in the studios. And I still have some ham left over. It's for people that don't know the story. We get given as a Christmas gift a whole ham leg,
So
which
Spanish, by the way.
it's straightforward for you guys that live in the city. But I have to get it on the plane and get it home, and I'm
And you have to sneak it
absolutely
in, don't
thrilled.
you? Because are you allowed to actually bring in a whole ham leg into the UK?
It's not been a
Oh,
problem. I
right,
have to be
okay.
honest. This year I was able to put it in the hut, just put it up in the where you put your hand luggage on the aeroplane. I did fly back late on Christmas Eve, so the plane was quite empty.
Yeah.
So I was able to put it on the hold and then carry it from Heathrow all the way back home. And then it takes up a lot of room. We have two dogs, two cats, and they just sit there looking at it admiringly on
Oh.
the kitchen worktop. And eventually I slice it all off. I'm not Spanish. I'm not an expert, but I managed to carve it all off, put it in bags, and keep it in the fridge for a while. So I think we've got a little bit left. So
Well, good.
it'll come in handy.
It'll tie you over for a while. Well, I certainly enjoy looking at your videos and your photos whenever you do post Christmas and you start topping up the ham legs. So it's good
I'm
fun.
one of these weird guys that barbecues all year round.
Right. Do
So
you?
I have an
Oh yeah,
outdoor
you
grill.
like the cold though, don't you? You're not bothered by it.
Well, I'm not bothered by it. I don't like it. I wrap up warm and I go out there and I'll cook right through the winter on the outdoor grill. So I'm one of those weird guys. I'm known by my local butchers as the weird guy that buys food that he can grill all year round in the winter.
Oh man. So what other hobbies have you
Fresh
taken
air.
up in the last few weeks? Because I'm sure all of us have started looking into other ways of trying to fill our time and to stay productive and to, yeah, maybe get around to doing things that we don't typically get to do. Like, today I made scones.
Well, I've been married 38 years this summer, and I cleaned the windows for the first time ever this week. And I have to say, I'm one of when I start a job, I have to make sure that I do it better than anybody else has ever done. So it took me hours to clean the windows, and it's just been snowing today, and I'm absolutely distraught that my windows have got wet. Um, Apart from that, I'm cutting the grass every 2 or 3
Are
days.
you doing
All
that
the
like,
same thing.
well, who was it? Jordan Henderson that got right up in there in the grass and was cutting
It
it up and
was
close with the
James
scissors?
Milner.
Who was it? James Milner, that's who it was. That's who it was.
It was the boring James
Yeah,
Milner, who's anything but boring.
did you do it that way
I
too?
don't. No, I didn't do the scissors. I just what shall I do? Shall I do something else? Go and cut the grass again. So I'm doing that. Watching box sets like everybody else. I was pleased that Ozark was back on. I done on Netflix. That
Yeah.
anyone watches it. So that comes in handy. Watching other stuff. I watched. Was it called The Tiger King?
Oh my God. I
Yeah.
binged that in 2 days. It was amazing.
I just couldn't believe what I was watching.
I know. I know. It was
So
unreal.
I think everybody's the same, aren't they? They're desperately no live sport on television,
Yeah.
so you're looking at whatever new is on, and just keeping yourself occupied and getting on with life in this weird way.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable. As I said, you're missing the things you take for granted, but we've got to do what we've got to do.
Yeah, no question. Well, guys, for those of you who are here with us watching this right now, we obviously want to hear what you guys have to say too. Join in on the chat. Let us know if you have any questions you want us to cover for the next 20 minutes or so that we're here with all of you. I know some of you have already said hello as well. Guillem Manguera on Periscope for the first time ever, so hello to you. And I think some other people as well. Look, from Nigeria, we have somebody. Tell us where you're joining in as well, too. But we would love to know if you have any questions, concerns, or anything you just want to tell us about in terms of how you're getting through this whole situation that is so strange for all of us right now. But so, Terry, why don't we start off and tell me a little bit about what you missed the most, maybe, about football or La Liga or anything in general from these last few weeks.
I think it's an ongoing story, isn't it? Particularly this season, we've had the chopping and changing at the top of the league, which we haven't had for a while. So one week you're thinking it's Barcelona have got the advantage, Real Madrid win the Clasico, they go top. Then within a week or two, Barcelona have stretched away again. So I think we missed that daily change, the weekly change. We've seen the emergence this season of some new teams improving. Real Sociedad in particular. I think everybody would admit they've been great to watch this season. A young team as well, some great individuals. They've been great to watch. I think I miss the changing story. At the moment, it's stuck. It's on pause. You have to keep reminding yourself what has happened this season, how we stand at the moment. Are we going to finish the season in La Liga and the Premier League and the other leagues throughout the world? I believe we have to. I don't think you can compromise it. I think however long it takes, this season has to be finished before we start another one. So if the timetable is going to change around the world in terms of football leagues, then so be it for a while. It's a consequence of these really unusual circumstances.
Now, Gordon, who's watching with us, hello, Gordon, he brought up a very good point.
Hello, Gordon.
I don't know if you saw it, Terry. He mentioned Getafe, very excitedly mentioned Getafe, and I think he has every reason to be so delighted because, I mean, they're another team that has just been punching above their weight. Since Bordalas took over, he brought them up from the second division. That first season, they finished 8th, and then, was it 8th? And then 5th or something like that. Last season, they ended up finishing 5th, just outside of the Champions League position on the very last day of competition. Now, they're in the top 4. I mean, it's amazing what Bordalas has done with this team, and just you almost want to see how they finish the season as well too, apart from everybody else.
I have a real soft spot for what they are doing, and I think I know Gordon. We've spoke over the years on Twitter about his support for Getafe, and I have a soft spot because I played for a similar team, Wimbledon, where we had similar attendances. We averaged about 6,000 supporters in a stadium that could hold about 12,000, I think. I may be wrong, called Plough Lane. We had the lowest budget in the league. I was the record signing of £200,000 for Manchester United when everyone else was spending not hundreds of millions, but a lot more than £200,000. When I say we had the lowest budget, we had the lowest wage bill in the league. And the first season I was there, we won the FA Cup, and the style of Getafe is very similar to what the style we had at Wimbledon. It's not your usual Spanish tiki-taka style of football. I think Bordalas has been inspired by what Simeone did with Atletico Madrid, where he had a similar a challenge when he took over Atletico. He didn't have the money of Real Madrid and Barcelona. They still don't, but they have a lot more now than when he first took over Atletico. So he had to come up with a different plan. And I'm all for different styles, different approaches. It worked for Atletico until they could build and build. And I think we've seen a number of coaches in La Liga who have adopted a similar attitude in terms of, this is the money we've got. We can't go out and buy big name players, so we'll buy experienced players that are established in La Liga. More often than not, in Getafe's case, they're cheap. They do lose players from time to time, but I think the similarity is in the style of play. At Wimbledon, it took me a while to get used to. I'd been brought up as a young player at Tottenham Hotspur, a couple of good seasons at Coventry, then bought by Manchester United, and then I joined Wimbledon, where there was nothing was compromised in terms of the style. You just had to keep repeating things time and time and time and time again. You had to switch your football brain off. Everything was based around statistics, how many times we could get the ball down the right channel, down the left channel, how many knockdowns we'd win in midfield, how many crosses we got into the penalty area, and it was built on overpowering, outpowering teams, and it worked. And Getafe have a very similar approach, tactically the same, 4-4-2, hard-working wide midfield players. The two midfield players, Adam Bari and Maximovic. I really feel that if anyone's going to buy those players from Getafe, they have to buy the two of them together. Yeah. You can't just buy one, because I look at their attributes. I can't see any obvious attributes of each individual.
But it's the same for every position on that team too, though, right? I mean, Mata, Molina, Angel, the three of them as well. It's almost like they need to go as a collective package deal wherever they go, and the same in defence. I mean, they're such a cohesive unit Getafe and the way that they work. I mean, it's true, there's no individual brilliance that outshines anybody else on the team. Their absolute strength is the fact that they work so unbelievably well, telepathically almost to this point. They're so well drilled all together. And you can bring anybody in off the bench at any point in time from the start or during the game, and everybody knows their role and everybody knows how to do it to perfection. It's amazing. It's really so fun. It's fun to watch. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but I find it entertaining for other reasons. It may not be the most beautiful football to watch, but I find it tactically and technically really interesting to watch them play.
And there has to be room at the top of any division in any league in Europe for a team that haven't got the funds of Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Manchester City, and Manchester United, and Bayern Munich, and Juventus, and all those teams around Europe, and you get by on hard work. The reason I mentioned those two is because, with all due respect to Getafe, most of the other players are not worth buying because of their age. So you're not going to get much money from Jorge Molina, despite him scoring lots of goals. Cucurella will be one. Gene, the central defender, would be another one that would be of interest. But the two midfield players are of the right age where a club could think, we want a Getafe player in our team, to replicate that spirit and that work ethic. But by and large, I mean, if Damian Suarez is in his 30s, there's not going to be a lot of takers in terms of spending big money to bring Damian Suarez into the team. And that's, the three strikers you're talking about are all over the age of 30. So, I mean, Mata was a late arrival to La Liga. I have no idea why. But we do get those players that they turn up in their late 20s, early 30s, playing in La Liga for the first time, either with a newly promoted team, or they get bought by a team like Getafe, and you think, why have they had to take so long? Why hasn't nobody recognised this talent earlier? And that Getafe, that's what they do. They recognise untapped talent. They buy it cheaply. They have a style of play that is easy for a player to understand. The hard work is the hard work. That's what makes it tough. When I was playing for Wimbledon, I had to make a ridiculous amount of channel runs, with and without, just to keep offering myself, running down the channel, and you know that your fullback was going to smash it in the channel. 50% of those you don't get to, but you cannot stop doing it. And Getafe have the same principles. They know they have to block crosses, the importance, block shots, mark players, track runners, make sure they get enough bodies into the penalty area, make sure they get the crosses into the penalty area at exactly the right time. Don't delay it. And all those things come together to make what we're seeing from Getafe now. I think it's great to watch. And, people love an underdog. However they go about trying to battle against the teams at the top. And I can remember, as I said, when Simeone took over Atletico Madrid, they were underdogs.
Yeah, they were.
And it seems ridiculous now. But they were underdogs, and he changed players' positions. Gabi came back from Zaragoza, and you're thinking it's a strange signing. Why has he come back? He's towards the end of his career. Juan Fran has become a right back. No chance. But managers, the special managers see something in players that the rest of us don't, and Bordelas is doing fantastically well, Getafe.
Now, you talk about transfers, and I think this could be interesting because I'm curious to know what you think the effect of this whole pandemic is going to be on the transfer market, because obviously, first of all, we're looking at La Liga and all football leagues in Europe, at least, probably not coming back until sometime during the summer or even August, September, probably the soonest if we're realistic, because obviously in every country they're dealing with the situation in its own time and in its own space. But we've seen clubs like Barcelona come out saying that they're going to do an ERTE, which is, ERTE is what it's called in Spanish here, which is like temporarily kind of suspending or lowering salaries for players to make sure that financially they don't get into trouble. And I think a lot of clubs will be following suit. Atletico Madrid were another club that I mentioned that they're looking into this option. So do you think that will have a knock-off effect on, or a knock-on effect on prices? We already talked about the highly inflated prices for players in general. I mean, look at Neymar, what was it, 260 million euros or something like that when he went to PSG. Do you think that those prices will actually start getting reduced and going down, and we'll start seeing maybe a more reasonable price tags for football players during the transfer window, whenever it should happen?
I hope so. I think that the Neymar one I hoped was going to be a one-off because the record transfer fee before that I think was Paul Pogba. I
Yeah.
think it went Gareth Bale, Pogba was around 105, I think, million
Yeah, and then
euros.
Coutinho
And
maybe or Dembele were around there as
yeah,
well.
and then it went woof, 100 million
Yeah,
more for Neymar, and I think then after that, everybody started paying the big money.
right,
I think Coutinho must have been after Neymar because he came in for Neymar,
right.
didn't
Yeah.
he? He was putting Dembele. Suddenly
That's
they
what
were
it
both
was. All of a sudden,
over
everybody
100
knew that
million.
Barcelona had to, had all this money in their pocket, and they figure, okay, well, we'll just inflate the price, and you want this player, well, he's worth, 3 times what originally you were going to get for him, right? So,
And everybody started measuring
yeah,
it at those new levels, and that was wrong. The Neymar one should have been a one-off, but it wasn't. And I think that the players' salaries will have to that they can't change them now. I know there's going to be special arrangements while we're in this situation, but I think long term that might have to change.
sure.
The worrying issue for me is the fact that we've gone 3 weeks now, 4 weeks without football, and clubs are finding it hard to cope.
Right.
So that's the worry that I think the overconfidence of football clubs. Listen, nobody expected anything like this to happen. In my lifetime, nothing like this remotely anywhere near has happened. Where all of live sport has been stopped.
Well, not since
Businesses.
World War II, right? I mean, that was the last time something
I'm
like
not
this
that old,
happened.
Semra.
I'm not saying you were there for World War II.
I'm joking.
Touche. Fair enough.
It's I think there's going to be a sense of realism. So much is going to change, I think, in football.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know when these seasons are going to start, when they're going to end. We don't know when the transfer window, players' contracts are up.
Of course.
I actually don't think there should be a transfer window for the next. I think it should just be. When I played, we had a transfer. The transfer deadline day was sometime in March. So up until March, clubs could buy players all the way through. Then there was this mad panic round about the end of March, I think it was, where clubs they had to make deadline day signings, sales. Why couldn't we go back to that? It wasn't the worst thing in the world. It was, as long as there's a deadline in place that stops Barcelona and Real Madrid buying important players from clubs with 2 weeks of the season to go just to influence results. That's why we had the deadline day in March. There was still, 8 weeks of the season to go. And I think that's going to have to be adapted. We can't have a transfer window where it's only a month because we don't know when that month is going to be. It's going to fall out of line with contracts of players. So, and also, I always felt that was a restraint of trade towards a club as well, because sometimes clubs do have cash flow problems. And for them to only be able to sell a player in certain times. Now, it doesn't happen much in LaLiga. It doesn't happen much in the Premier League. But in other leagues around the world, the smaller leagues, the lower leagues in Spain, the second division, the lower leagues in English football, those clubs now and then have to rely on, selling a player. My nephew is 17. He was a young, I don't know what they're called now, apprentice professional, which I was at Barnet Football Club. And as soon as this happened, he was laid off.
Oh man!
And all their players were.
I'm sorry to hear
so
that.
he's left school. He's been to Barnet. He's been playing, for their reserves and stuff like that. And now all of a sudden they've been so much is going to change around the world of football. It might be a healthy dose of realism, which has been lacking in recent seasons. It's drifted. I think clubs always expected TV money just to keep going on the rise. That hasn't been the case now. And I think now everybody's going to have a good look at it and think, we have to be careful in the future. And also businesses, clubs, individuals are going to be suffering during this period of time of, loss of earnings. So it's going to be, football is going to have to fall in line the same as everything else and get, as I say, a healthy dose of realism.
No, you're right. I mean, the ramifications are looking to be quite huge, at least, and probably for the long term as well. I don't think we're looking at 6 months. This could be a year, 2 years, or a few years before things start to kind of settle off and return to a level of normalcy again. But it's always going to be different after this. I mean, this is going to change all of our lives in one way or another. And I think you're right about the money. I mean, banking on just money coming in from television revenue. I mean, in the case of La Liga, they could lose 700 to 800 million pounds if they don't finish the season, because, you know, television networks, they're promised a certain number of games and they're promised they have their slots that they need to fill and so on. So if those games aren't actually taking place, then that money has to be returned to those networks. And so I think, having said that the league will finish at some point in time, but we'll have to see, you know, when eventually that does happen. So we have some questions that have been coming in, Terry.
Perfect.
Let's see if I can pull them back up. So I believe it's David Whitworth, if I'm not mistaken, down in Sevilla. He says, we all love football, but why is it that we love football? His answer is, for me, it's a sense of belonging and being part of a family to achieve something special together. So what about for you, Terry?
It is. It's a culture. I mean, I support Tottenham Hotspur. My dad supported Tottenham Hotspur.
So it runs
I'm
in the
hoping
family.
my son supports Manchester United.
Oh, something went wrong there.
Eric Cantona was the reason.
Okay.
My son was at that age when Cantona was what he was, player that I loved.
Everybody loves Eric Cantona, don't we? So that's a fair.
Out of nowhere, my son supported Manchester United. So I forgive him, of course. But so I think you once you're in. There's no getting out, and it's great to support clubs that win something on a regular basis.
Sure.
And it's hard work supporting a club that doesn't. I'm grateful that I lost that support when I was growing up as a boy.
Really?
Growing up as a boy, Tottenham mad.
Right. Okay.
I was able to play for Tottenham when I had a choice of loads of other clubs, but I chose Tottenham. It was in my heart. I was never going to go anywhere else. And then when you leave and you join another football club, for the rest of your career, you're not a fan anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you're a professional. You're playing for your team. I went on to coach. You're coaching your team. That's all you care about. So I was always kind of interested at the end of all of that, whether I could go back to being, you know, a fan.
Right.
And thankfully I am. It's hard work. It has its ups and downs, as any supporter will have. But it's something that we love doing. I mean, it's disappointing more often than not for most supporters. There's always something that disappoints you. You know, whether it's a bad performance,
so much,
bad result. We suffer to support our football teams. I don't get to support in terms of going out to games because of other commitments. Thankfully, in La Liga and LaLiga TV and stuff like that. But you know, it's great being a supporter. I can't imagine what life would be like, not to support a football team, and have your favourite players and stuff. So you know, it's what do we miss, especially in that part of the world where David's from, Sevilla. I'm guessing he supports Sevilla or Betis. I'd be very surprised if he supports anyone else other than those two.
I think he's a pretty avid Betis fan.
There you go.
If I'm not mistaken.
And one of my favourite cities. Whenever people ask me, where should I go and watch a game in Spain?
100%.
I no doubt. I mean, yes, go to Madrid and Barcelona to, you know, the Bernabeu and the Camp Nou. I get that. That's it. When I fly out to do my work with you guys, the plane is full of people coming to Barcelona. I see them going back on a Monday on the same flight. I come out on a Friday morning, they go back on a Monday morning, and you see them go out in one set of clothes, they come back in Barcelona clothes. Scarves, shirts, tracksuits, hoodies. You know exactly where they've been. Messi is a tourist attraction. Yeah. Barcelona is a tourist attraction, the same as the Bernabeu and the Real Madrid players. Messi is like Disneyland. Yeah. It is literally as people going from all over the world to watch Messi. The times I get asked, is Messi fit? Is he playing tomorrow? When I'm queuing up at passport control at Barcelona airport, and I say, as far as I know, it's an obligation. I don't know if that young man realises the money that's spent and the effort that goes in from people all around the world. I'm pretty sure he does. Yeah. You know, to go and watch him play is a thrill of a lifetime for so many people. Oh, no question. So, but I always end up saying, go to the city of Sevilla. If you want to see the real flavour of La Liga, it's vibrant, the colours, the city, the support, the passion, the weather.
The food, the emotion, everything. It's the perfect place.
Exactly. I mean, I love the city. And I think the reason I love the city is because of the passion of, the supporters, the green and white and the red and white everywhere you go, hanging off from balconies and different, buildings. And that. I mean, I'm in London. I was brought up in London where we have so many football clubs. And, to have two in one city like Sevilla is totally different to what I experienced before. So we have to, as I said, I can't imagine what life is like without just being a neutral, watching every game as a neutral, which I know we do a lot, but every now and then it's good to watch your team. God, we were in the Champions League final last year.
Yeah, amazing.
I didn't enjoy it.
I know that was a very painful game for I think for both fans, Liverpool and Tottenham, to sit through that. And it wasn't exactly the most enjoyable game of football either, to be completely fair with you. But anyway, so...
The issue there for me was, Semra, it took 30 seconds before we conceded a penalty. So we had 30 seconds at 0-0. Exactly. I enjoyed it for about 20 seconds. And you think, at least if it had been 20 minutes, we'd have had 20 minutes at 0-0. 30 seconds, we put 1-0 down or whatever. So it was that hope muscle you have as a Spurs fan is overworked. It's built up and it's as big as it can get, and then every now and then you come close. But
it will happen, Terry, one day. Don't worry.
That's what being a supporter is all about.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I have faith that one day you will get that Champions League that you want. We shall see. We shall see. So going back to Seville, obviously, that was the one game we were going to have on that first weekend that ended up getting cancelled in LaLiga. You probably remember it was going to be at the Sanchez Pizjuan. So on the one hand, sadly, we didn't get a chance to watch it. But on the other hand, at least as soon as football does resume and La Liga does resume, that will be one of the first games that we get to see and that we get treated to. So, I mean, at least that's something to look forward to because it's going to be a fabulous game, as you already said, for all of the reasons you already highlighted. But going back to Barcelona, because Fabol1129 has asked a question, and he would like to know what your view about Barcelona's aging squad is and its effect on La Masia.
But I think that the effect on La Masia has been going on for some time now. And I do have a theory. I think it's incredibly hard for young players at any club to make the breakthrough into the first team. Now, you're talking about Barcelona being one of the best teams in Europe for the last 10 years.
Right.
And they've had their failures in the Champions League in recent seasons. But if you take that body of work over since Pep took over, it is incredibly hard for any young player, we're talking Ricky Puig and people like that, to break through ahead of the experienced international world-class players that Barcelona already have. So I think it's unfair to compare it to the group that came through under Pep Guardiola. Piqué was brought back from Manchester United, Busquets came in from the B team, and Pedro. They were the three. And when you filter it back then, you had Iniesta had made a breakthrough, but it really was only under Pep that he became so important.
Right.
You look at previous games, under previous managers. I think it was a Champions League final where Iniesta was on the bench. Puyol was another example. He was older, so he'd been in it a lot longer. So at that period of time, Barcelona were fortunate to have had the new crop, the middle crop with, say, Iniesta, and then Xavi and Puyol from the older days, Victor Valdez in goal. That comes across, once in I would say a lifetime, maybe a generation. So if you're a young player now, you're looking at Barcelona still spending money. De Jong costs big money. As we mentioned, Coutinho and Dembele and Griezmann. And Rakitic was bought not a million years ago. Arturo Vidal. If you're a young 20, 21, 22-year-old, it's incredibly hard to make that breakthrough and convince the manager you're better than them. And also the manager he's thinking purely on winning games week in, week out. No manager at Barcelona will get the luxury anymore of testing young players and asking the supporters for patience. Right. And the media, be patient. This is a team that's going to be, these players are going to be fantastic in a couple of years' time. Barcelona, that doesn't happen anymore with Barcelona and Real Madrid and Manchester United, as I mentioned, all the big clubs in Europe. Success has to be then it has to be now. And that makes it really hard now for young players to make a breakthrough. Ansu Fati only got his chance this season because of injuries. It was one particular area of the team that Barcelona was suffering from, with all their strikers missing. And
also loading to rule them out in the winter transfer window as well, which wasn't a smart move.
Exactly. I mean, we could make a whole new, chat about how Barcelona is run as a football club at the moment.
Right.
But I think that's why it's incredibly difficult for young players to make the breakthrough. It happens everywhere. Supporters want that success instantly. The managers rely on it, otherwise they get the sack. And you have to be a special player to make that breakthrough into the first team at one of these big clubs in Europe. And Barcelona is no exception.
Right. It's ironic how the identities of Barcelona and Real Madrid in the last 10, 15 years, let's say, how it's swapped, how Real Madrid under Florentino Perez, it was the whole Galactico approach. Let's sign big, let's sign, the best players in Europe and the biggest names, and kind of shy away from homegrown talent. And that was always what Barcelona was about. And now, at least at present time, it seems to be the other way around, doesn't it? And it's not working for Barcelona really, as well as, as what you said before, right? The era under Guardiola, but it's actually working relatively well for Real Madrid too, which is, it's nice to see that they are actually paying attention and that they are giving a lot of youth and young talent the opportunities to come through and to try and break into the first team. And when we look at the other talent that's spread around La Liga as well, in Martin Odegaard or Take Kubo, or who else am I missing out on loan? I mean, there's plenty of players. Yeah, exactly. There's
Hakimi.
Exactly. There's
Reguilon.
Exactly. Reguilon is another one. I mean, imagine if those players come back to the side in the next few years. It's going to be a tremendous Real Madrid team.
That's the issue, though. Will they get the opportunity to come back and play? I doubt it. All those players you mentioned.
You don't think any of them will get a chance to break into the Real Madrid side?
Pardon?
You don't think any of them will be able to make it back into the Real Madrid side?
I think they're all good enough. No, I don't think they will.
Really? Not even Martin Odegaard?
No, I think they'll sell him.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's the way he's played this season has enticed big clubs all around Europe.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to know whether Real Madrid, then they have a decision to make. He can't come in and be a squad player. He has to play. Wherever he goes, he has to play. We're seeing the benefits of that. Or will someone pay 80 million for him? Then Real Madrid have to make that decision. And, is he going to become a first choice player at Real Madrid? It depends on who they buy and sell. If you look at Toni Kroos, who's 30-something now, Luka Modric is 30-something. Then you've got Valverde and Casemiro, who are younger.
But you've even got Marcelo, who's probably on the way out too. So you only have Mandi at left back as the only option. So Reguilon maybe could come in to fight for that position too.
That's a possibility. Achraf Hakimi at Dortmund has been a brilliant. I'd never understood why they let him go. It benefits him playing on a regular basis. They had Danny Carvajal, and then they signed Alvaro Odriozola, who's another one we forgot to mention, who's out known at Bayern Munich now. And then they let Hakimi go. And I thought Achraf Hakimi had done enough in the games he played to suggest that he should have been back up for. And as it's turned out, he can play left back and right back. So he'd have been ideal cover. They should have kept him, but it's benefited him from going away. He's playing Champions League football. He's playing for Dortmund on a regular basis. His value has gone up. That's another decision. Do Real Madrid keep him, bring him back, put him on the bench, or do they take the money and then go and spend it on Paul Pogba and players of that?
Or maybe Haaland, coming in as well in the future. I'm sure they have an eye on him too.
It's instant success. Yeah. I mean, Real Madrid are different to Barcelona in the fact they've been spending a lot of money on young players that haven't come through their system. But the 2-3 Brazilians now, that the young players that they've bought, are well over 100 million for those three. That's a huge sum of money. So Real Madrid need more youngsters to come through from their system. The Nacho and Lucas Vázquez, Carvajal, trying to go through. Fede Valverde was bought, Casemiro was bought.
Yeah, but
I
they
think,
played in Castilla for a while, didn't they? Before they. But I see
yeah,
your point.
yeah,
Though. I see your point.
yeah.
I see your point.
I think what we're looking for from people is like the Carvajal, Casillas,
Yeah.
those that come right through the system,
Yeah.
same as the one
Yeah.
we talked about at Barcelona that came right through the
Yeah.
system. Barcelona haven't really tried that route yet, have they? Where they've brought younger players in the hope. I can remember Alen Halilovic.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. They signed him
He
when he
was a
was 15 or something like that, right? He
yeah.
was the new shiny bright talent across Europe.
He was the Croatian
Exactly.
Messi.
Exactly.
There's
Exactly.
always
There's always
a
a
variation of
Messi.
Messi. Yeah. So Barcelona haven't really gone down that route. I think they've signed a young player from Las Palmas though, who I saw was the new Iniesta,
Ah, yes. This
who's
vaguely rings a bell. It does. Yeah.
who's playing week in week out in the
Yeah.
Segunda under Pepe Mel at Las Palmas, the former Betis manager who rates him really highly. I think Barcelona bought him. I did read last week that they bought another player from Brazil, another young player. So perhaps they're following, Real Madrid's path now. So, but it is going back to the original question. It is so hard to make the breakthrough unless you're a special talent at the big clubs in Europe, not just Barcelona.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I don't know if
I've got
there's.
plenty of it.
What's that?
We all have.
Yeah. So, is there any final thoughts or any final comments or anything you want to say before we sign off for the afternoon?
I just think is it afternoon? No,
I don't know what time is it there. It's 1:45.
1:42.
Okay, so here
Yeah.
it's 2:42. Okay, so now you're only an hour behind us. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think I just wish everybody, patience and perseverance with what we're all doing and going through, and we're all in it together, literally all together, all around the world. Everybody's, in a similar situation. And I just, as I said at the start of what we're doing, that hopefully every day is a day closer to us getting back to normal in normal life and getting back to the day closer to seeing that Sevilla derby full of supporters, not played behind closed doors, because that's not what it's about. And seeing live sport all around the world. So my best wishes to everybody to stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully we're all back together soon, watching LaLiga TV, working on a regular basis, and ploughing through the games to get this season finished.
Yep. And accompanied by our fantastic bocadillos de jamón and pizza and café con leche and all of that wonderful stuff. Well, Terry, thank you very much. It's been so nice to see you. I'm glad you're looking very well. So I'm very delighted to have been able to do this with you. And
no, thank you for asking me on. It's
absolutely
a pleasure.
Anytime you want, you know where to find me.
Thank you, Semra. Take care.
All right, take care, everyone, as well. We'll see you tomorrow. Lorna is also going to be joining us as well. That's going to be at noon Central European time, so tune in for that. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and adios.